gonna use it. He doesn't need to use it.
Good evening. Welcome to the Board of Selectmen meeting September 30th, 2012. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. So, gentlemen, I'll be, I guess, acting chair this evening, and our agenda here is a warrant to be signed and old business discussion and a vote on town meeting warrant for October 28th, 2013. Gentlemen, shall we start with our town planner and have a discussion on that? Is that where we want to go? Talk about medical marijuana and that topic, because we're going to have to address that for the warrant. So we might as well address that first, I guess. Howard.
Thanks to the Selectmen for having me here.
Thanks for
Here
being
I
here.
can give a short overview of the actions of the planning board, but really here for any type of questions from the Selectmen regarding the medical marijuana bylaw. The planning board held 2 public hearings for the medical marijuana treatment center bylaw, as it's officially referred to, Article 20. At the last planning board meeting, the previous Wednesday, they closed the public hearing and referred it to the Selectmen's meeting for their inclusion on the warrant for a special town meeting. I provided the Selectmen's office with a copy of the bylaw, as well as you received tonight, and I have for the overhead the preliminary, or the map of the overlay district, which is referred to in the bylaw.
Is that on this map?
That's correct.
Okay. All right, great. Why don't you show us what you got?
I have access to 2 different maps. The first is the existing zoning and overlay districts map. This is the comprehensive zoning map of Georgetown. And to facilitate our discussion, we'll have reference to this. But what you received a copy of is this. And in the planning board meeting, in the public hearings, we considered the industrial area overlay, the industrial area for an overlay, as well as commercial B area. The letters that you see are for reference in discussion in case there was any desire to amend it on the floor at town meeting. Area A is over the commercial B area for the most part. Over where the hand you see here is Town Hall and the Public Safety Building. Area C is on the south side of East Main Street. This is the clover leaf for access on and off of 95. Area B, underneath Area B is also, you'll see here, the commercial C area. This area right here is part of the economic target area. And you can see how the industrial district of Georgetown extends up 95. We included most of that, but we did not put in this area right here is where Longview Apartments is, and that was a Chapter 40B development, so we didn't want to include that as a residential use in the industrial zone.
So everything we're looking at here, A through E, is the zoning for the overlay for medical marijuana? That's
for
what you're
medical
proposing?
marijuana overlay, correct. The MMOD, as it's referred to in the bylaw.
Okay.
Can you go over,
One thing I want to note is it's not an exact overlay of the industrial area. What I did, you can see over here, there's part of the commercial C, is I took out those parcels of land which are bifurcated by 2 different zoning districts. So over here, there's a parcel of land that's partially commercial C, but also residential.
Mm-hmm.
So every area you see covered by the MMOD is a parcel completely within that zone district of either a commercial C or industrial.
Okay.
I also want to note that you can see it here. It's better to see it over in this area. This red area is the adult entertainment overlay district, which is over in the industrial area. It's an overlay in the industrial zone as well.
Howard, if you might, go back to A again. So that's, where's Town Hall in relationship to A?
Doesn't look like it's in it.
Town hall is right here, public safety building.
Okay,
This area over here is the area of, that's 5 Elm Street. And this area right here is Georgetown Building Supply. This is a residential area, but over here in this area is the Dunkin' Donuts Plaza.
Dunkin' Donuts is right about there, right?
I'm sorry?
Dunkin' Donuts is right towards the edge there.
Right
about
over
there.
here.
And that's in that zone? That's little center is in that zone?
No,
No,
this side of the street.
this side of the street where the hand is, the Dunkin' Donuts Plaza is actually in a residential zone.
Okay.
This is commercial A over here. This is Henry Murch Park. This is the Civil War
Right, okay.
is right here.
Got it.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Sure.
How much of that number A is wetlands? Any idea?
Large portion right
Yeah.
through here.
I mean,
What you see in this area is the floodplain district, which would require any type of development review with the zoning board.
I mean, it's very, and you have, we presently have some residential in there. I mean, it's right next to the park, correct?
There is.
Yeah.
Those are existing uses.
And
There's some in
There's
here.
a few homes, there's a few residential homes in there.
Where's the building supply in relationship to that?
Not there.
Right over here.
Off this side.
These 2 lots.
Can I ask, why would you not include that?
Because the site is split between the commercial district and in the back it's residential. There's an intent in the medical marijuana treatment center bylaw to distance itself from residential zones.
Yes.
So that's why any lot that was split by residential was removed from the overlay. This is the
But yet
CVS
you-
over here.
But yet you've got some residential in section A now,
Right,
so I'm not quite understanding it.
me neither.
Because the residential use is fully within a commercial district.
Okay.
So,
In other words, if I may, what you're saying is those people right now could sell their houses for commercial
Correct.
use, but in the other district, they couldn't.
Correct.
Okay. I think that clears it up a little bit for me.
The reason why this was done was through discussion with the medical marijuana bylaw. We had some input from medicinal marijuana provider that came in, and with review of how the registration of a medical marijuana dispensary would happen, an RMD. If you get licensed as an RMD, you're responsible for, as it is said, from seed to sale. You can have your dispensary operation and cultivation in the same location, or you can have it in 2 different locations. So we want to give, with the overlay, the possibility that their cultivation could occur in the industrial and their dispensing operation could happen in a different area than in the industrial zone.
And you separated cultivation from an RMD?
No, we kept RMD as the same.
Okay.
The state, in their bylaws and regulations, consider a registered marijuana dispensary as an umbrella to both cultivation
Okay.
and a dispensing.
So you could cultivate over here in town as
You,
well as
you could, but
dispense.
it's our understanding the size of these lots in the required size for a cultivation
In the
operation.
larger areas.
Yeah, they require 3,000 square foot facilities. And it's also believed that a cultivation facility would require a standalone building for security purposes. And most of the structures in here have either 0 lot lines or 10 to 15-foot setbacks.
So the likelihood of a cultivation center in Zone A is very unlikely.
I would say it's very unlikely.
If I may, Mr. Chair, though, if I may, I don't believe there was any clear answer at the hearing as to whether the town could, on its own bylaw, separate the two of them. Some felt that yes, we could, and some felt that no, we couldn't, and at the hearing, they just decided to keep it as the same.
Correct.
But
We considered separation of the cultivation use as well as dispensing use, and then the definitions and understanding of how those uses would operate became to be very complex, and seemed that we could run into some trouble with the state review of the bylaw with that type of separation. So we want to keep in line with the same thought as the regulations.
I didn't, do you still have any more presentation before we do questions, or?
No, I'm here for questions.
Okay. Questions?
Well, since the email was down and we just got the information. It's difficult to come up with too many questions, but
Well, if I may, Mr. Chair, I mean, from what you've done in the downtown area, it looks very restrictive to me, and especially with the bylaw, and the setbacks, okay? If I would go to page 4, section 8, eligible locations. Okay, and even out in your other overlay districts. I'd asked Howard earlier, and perhaps if I may now, it refers that no RMD use shall be located within 300 linear feet of a property line where the following zoning districts activity or use occurs, and it has a list 1 through 15. Now, I asked Howard, earlier, to have this answer for us. To me, I see this is a legal operation. So there's 2 questions I wanted to ask, and in this type of zone, what do we do for a pharmacy or a doctor's office? And the other one was, how would these setbacks apply to something such as a liquor store or a restaurant that has alcohol for sale? Because some of these, right here, section A, it goes right along next to the park. And so right behind that is nothing but wetlands. So I think that the state's gonna, but let's answer, if you can answer those questions, yeah.
Sure, it's an answer in 2 parts. The 300-foot property line to property line eligibility for location is an interpretation from the Copeland Page model bylaw, as well as other municipalities, as well as the state even recommended 500. So what's required is they need to find a location that is 300 feet from a residential use or a activity of a park or a school or those other type of activities. If they come to the planning board as a special permit granting authority and say, there isn't a property in town that meets that 300 foot, the planning board can then say, because it's a special permit process, we'll allow you up to a 50% reduction. So then they need to go back and look at 150 feet from property line to property line. The overlay district itself considers the underlying district in terms of setbacks. And when we say setbacks, we're referring to side yard, backyard. The 150,
Yes.
300 foot is more boundaries, eligible location. With our discussion, Gary, if it were to come in without this bylaw and the zoning code enforcement officer stated, well, it's a medical use. Medical uses aren't allowed in the commercial or by permit, they need to be special permit granted. And they're not allowed at all, they're prohibited from the industrial area.
But the one question was, we don't have this type of setbacks for a pharmacy or a doctor's office or for liquor stores.
For the 150 or 300 feet, no, we don't know.
Yeah. So we're putting and even though you do say that this follows along the state, I mean, to me, I find that we're making the downtown, especially Area A, if you enlarge that again, I mean, you've got the Civil War Memorial, which could be called a park. We've got Harry Murch Park. It mentions a
Childcare.
youth center, child care. I mean,
What about
we've
Smith
got
Family
we've got a
across?
daycare place down in that area.
Yeah.
So I mean, I don't see anybody going in there.
Quick question on that topic, Howard. So presuming like across from Smith Family, one of those buildings sold or the investment place sells, we could put a dispensary in there, or no? Are we talking 300 linear feet every direction?
Property line to property line.
So,
But that can be reduced down to 150.
so in the event that somebody wanted to go across the street, let's say from Smith Family, are you talking property line sideways to sideways, or even across a road?
Well, we could, let's take one of these parcels of land that you can easily see. Let's take this one over here, which is right next to the municipal light department. It would be from that corner in a 150 or 300 foot radius,
Okay.
or that line. So it would be something that would fall, and then a radius, and then over. Now, again, this is a special permit process, so there's an allowance for reduction of those. It's not,
Is there a definition on what the reduction can be via the state, or is it
the state
determined
recommended
by
500, but as we're putting it in a special permit, there's an allowance for it to be reduced. And-
does the state indicate what the maximum reduction is on a restriction like that?
No.
So the planning board could?
Planning board decided on 50. It could be rewritten for a reduction up to
But they-
75 or 80.
But the planning board could vote to do it in a larger reduction or a smaller reduction if they so chose on a special permit issue.
Correct.
Okay. So if I'm hearing Gary's point is it's very restrictive, because if you're doing 150 feet and this is the park, let's
Right there.
say
Yeah.
Smith Family's like maybe right here or here, you would be well into 300 easily there, and you would probably be well into 150.
I would say you would be close to 150.
You know what I mean? So is it at the discretion of a board vote at the planning board if somebody came in for this special permit and wanted to be, let's say, here's Smith, and they wanted to be across the street here in a building, then the planning board could reject or approve some different restriction size, so they could increase it or decrease it,
Correct.
and that would be a vote of the planning board members.
Correct. By majority.
Yes.
But if I may, it also mentions public park.
Right, which is Harry Murch is technically a public park.
Correct.
And up at the corner, the very top corner, is the Civil War.
Right, up
Memorial.
on this other corner.
But I just
And
want
the
to
church
mention
right across the street.
an overlay district is the fact that this is an area that can be considered for this. It's not an exact match to what the bylaw is saying is allowed or not. The intensity of study that would require the planning office to study each lot in the commercial to see if it's 150 or 300 wasn't in the purview of the bylaw. So you start with the overlay district,
Okay.
and then you can start taking out
Okay.
with an application the
So
parcels of land that are viable or not.
So Gary, I think if I'm hearing, and tell me if this is what you're thinking, it's a legal business. It's legal in Massachusetts. We don't want to over restrict, and what I'm hearing is that there is a mechanism in the event that somebody is at the 300, that if it needs to be 25 feet from said park or whatever, that it could be reduced through special permit and a vote at the planning board.
Correct. And to add to that, in a slightly different perspective, if they come in and say, for us to meet your bylaw, we need the reduction, then the planning board can waive that 300 feet.
Okay.
We cannot create this bylaw so restrictive that there isn't an available location in town.
Right.
So if an application were to come in and they said, we'd like to locate here, even with 150, then again, the planning board would be able to look at it as a waiver.
Okay. Because specifically in the state law, from what I read, there was an article that addressed not making it overly restrictive. That's
Undue hardship.
right. Undue hardship. Thank you.
Correct.
Right. Town council's reviewed it and is on board so far with this, and
It's been
the
forwarded on
process
to
is-
town council. I haven't,
They haven't
in
gotten through it
preparation
yet.
of the warrant.
It's under review.
okay. So
Just got
yeah,
it.
that was some of my concern, as I haven't seen red lines, I haven't seen anything. So, in the event, I have a question, Mike. In the event that something comes back from town council on a red line or a major flag or something like this on this particular bylaw, and we are voting to put it on a town warrant tonight, what is the recourse at that point? If there's a major issue before town meeting and it's not gonna get
Well,
resolved
because we
before town
don't
meeting?
have the finalized language, whatever comes, and it's not gonna come back in time for the planning board to make any alterations. Whatever comes back from legal is what's gonna go on the warrant. It can be amended at
Oh,
the
okay.
meeting,
Okay,
but the red line copy will be going on the
Okay.
on the warrant.
okay. So any changes will be active, and that's what would be accepted at town meeting?
It would be on the warrant at town meeting, and by motion, it could be adjusted there.
Okay.
But we wouldn't really have the, well, would we really have the capability of really discussing those issues? I mean, at a town meeting?
Adequately, probably not.
Okay.
That's why, they had the public hearing process. It's long past that stage now.
I wasn't even referring to the public, I was referring to the planning board taking a look at what legal counsel comes up with to say, you can't do this, you can't do that, or you can do this and you can do that.
Well, we plan to post this warrant on Thursday.
Right.
The only thing that's gonna hold it up is lack of legal review. We can post it as late as Tuesday. I'm sorry, Monday. That's why we give ourselves that extra day or two. But,
But I don't think it's fair to ask us to put this on the warrant tonight if we don't have the full process done, meaning commentary back from legal, which the planning board has looked at and modified the bylaw, and then brought it to our attention as a complete package. Just my opinion. I don't think it's fair to ask us to go ahead and put this on the warrant if the whole process is not done.
If legal review comes back, the planning board would have to renotice and start a new public hearing on it.
Which they should if legal counsel has concerns about the bylaw.
Right.
So to me, the process is not done. It's not a complete package. And no disrespect to the planning board. So that leads me to my next thought is, are we doing this because of the application deadlines for a particular, for the companies to get things in? That,
No.
is it, in other words, do we have somebody that's saying, hey, you know what? The town is really missing an opportunity here to have a viable business in town. And, if this doesn't make this bylaw, doesn't get in for the next meeting, we're gonna miss a deadline on our applications or anything like that, no?
No.
Okay. And again, I'm not doing this as a stall tactic either, but to me, how can we, personally, speaking for myself, I don't know how I can vote to put this on the warrant until legal counsel has given its blessing. Just my opinion.
Gary, you had a question? thought?
Well, some of my other questions also, I mean, I know how hard the planning board worked on this, I attended one night of the public hearing, but one of my other concerns now would also be the fact that they didn't break it into two different districts. And now, if you look at like section, well, any of these, section E, D, C, I mean, this is pretty much more an industrial zone, where I think might be more suited to a growing facility. But a dispensary, they were talking, I believe, of possibly 1,000 customers a month, was that it, or something of that sort?
We had someone come in that
Yeah.
spoke of
The people that came
Their
to
They
us.
came to us, yeah.
Yes.
About 1,000,
I
when
thought
they
it
were up and running and they had peak.
Yeah, and so
peak
now we
performance.
could be sending out in, I mean, these areas that are, you know, you go down to Tenny Street to get to these areas, you know, each one of these areas, Tenny Street's probably the easiest access from 95. And, you know, we're sending a lot more traffic.
Down those?
You know, to me, a dispensary would be more suited to the downtown district rather than out in those outlay districts. And I think that we'd possibly be sending a lot more traffic down those streets versus a commercial growing type of facility that would have, you know, a few workers going back and forth. So, I mean,
It just seems to me though, in a business plan perspective, you know, to have two facilities where it would be probably more efficient to have the growing and then, you know, in the back and then in the front as the dispensary, you know,
Well,
no travel, less security, you know, concerns.
I
mean, that's
think
just my
there's
concern.
I think there's possibly a fit for, that's what I mean, I think there's possibly a fit for them to overlay like that, in a couple of areas in town.
Right.
But still, I don't see the commercial growing area in A.
No,
And
never
quite
have.
frankly, I don't see the dispensary down there in section E, or, you know, some of these other areas. D, what does that encompass? Is that the Searle Street area? or-
that's Martell.
Well, I mean, that
Right
might
through
be
here is
conducive
Martell Way.
to, you know.
Yeah, I think in the
uh,
industrial areas here, you know, you certainly have room to do both.
Well, you live on that street, people might feel different.
Yeah.
I
Well,
mean,
either way,
you
I
know,
think people are gonna be,
We wouldn't let them
It's
put a
gonna be-
liquor store out there. We wouldn't let them put a doctor's office out there, correct?
I think a doctor's office wouldn't go out there just because of
the
Well,
isolation,
isolation.
right.
And that's one reason why the board considered this area over here, A, is part of the overlay district. So there wasn't the stigma of somebody coming for their prescription to have to go to a side door in an industrial warehouse to
Right.
pick it up.
And I know how hard the planning board worked on this, like I say, I went to the meeting, and I don't mean to try to rewrite the whole thing, so, I mean, I also agree with David without looking at it, but I think my biggest concern is section A is a little restrictive of the downtown area, for one thing, very restrictive. I don't even know if it would apply with the Attorney General. But maybe you've got enough out in the other areas.
To cover the, yeah,
To
to cover
cover,
the
but,
restrictiveness of
but-
it, yeah.
Howard, quick question, and on the special permit to be able to reduce the 300-foot linear, 300 linear feet on the RMD, where in this does it talk about that ability for somebody to come and get a special permit and have that, I haven't
Waived?
have that waived?
It's a couple sections following that. I think it's setbacks and dimensional is the title of it.
Special permit conditions?
Yeah, page 5, review procedures and criteria.
Gary, can I borrow that?
Yep. All right, I got two of them.
Page 3, required, submission requirements and required documents.
On page 5, section I, separation. Distances shall be calculated by direct measurement from the nearest property line of the land used for school or childcare purposes, or places where minors frequent or any other use listed above. The distance requirement may be reduced by 50% or less, but only if Item 1, the applicant demonstrates that RMD would otherwise be effectively prohibited from within the municipality.
Okay. Gentlemen, further discussion, thoughts? I'm feeling like this is rushed. I know that the planning board has done I think a great job. I mean, you guys have looked at it, you know, I've seen the initial one that you guys had shared. I'm just feeling that it's a bit rushed. We don't have comment back from our legal counsel. I don't know how you guys feel, but personally, I'm feeling it's a bit rushed to be putting it on a town warrant. That said, what is the planning board's thought process for putting it on town warrant at this point? Because,
Well, they recommended it to the selectmen for inclusion on the special town meeting warrant. It's my understanding that if it doesn't go on the warrant, the bylaw will, if you will, expire before the annual town meeting, and so we'd have to go through the public hearing process again.
okay,
We have up to 6 months from when it's recommended to the selectmen
okay.
for it to go to town meeting.
So, one other thought, what was the term when you put it off for 2 years?
Moratorium.
Moratorium, thank you. Is there a reason we wouldn't consider a moratorium if we're not quite there yet? Does a moratorium, is there exposure and risk to having a moratorium versus maybe rushing a bylaw?
I wouldn't say there's risk. The moratorium could be written in a way that it allows, the state recognizes, the Attorney General's office allows up to 2 years from when you adopt it, that you need to adopt an
Bylaw.
R&D type of bylaw.
Okay.
That doesn't mean you need to wait 2 years.
Yep.
The process that may have happened, as an example, is the moratorium could have been brought in for a special town meeting this fall, and between fall and the annual next year, the full bylaw could have been considered and brought to town meeting, so it could have been that length of period. Or you could wait up to another year, but no more than 2 years. It's too late to consider moratorium for special town. You could consider a moratorium for the annual in the spring. But by then, you could vet all through this bylaw.
Right. So what's the issue with why is it too late now for a moratorium for special?
We'd have to go through the public hearing process.
Okay. To be able to take comments and do that and all that, okay.
Right.
Well, either way, we're probably gonna have to do that anyway. I mean, to do
Potentially.
the work, if we don't vote this tonight.
Question on, I'm just bringing this up, is there, the date for town meeting of October, 28, is there, it could be moved back to any time in the fall?
Yes,
Could be
it
moved
could.
back to September, I'm sorry, November or December or anything like that, potentially?
Yes.
That's the short answer. Yes.
Well, Mike had also mentioned something about that if legal counsel makes a change to this, that we would have to open up a public hearing again? Something to that sort, I thought I heard.
Well, no, I don't think so.
Oh, okay, I thought I heard something along that
If,
line
if,
earlier.
if the planning board changes it, they'd have to make a,
So what you're saying.
or it can be amended on town meeting floor.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
They're just reviewing it for legal form and content. So, I mean, we do that with every warrant
Right.
article. So that's,
I don't think that legal counsel would be changing that 300 to 500 or something like that.
no, they would just be making,
And so any minor change, typically what we would do it at town meeting floor.
no, it would get printed in the warrant as recommended by legal counsel.
But at this point, we don't have it.
But
Time for-
we will before we post it. They have to complete their review by Thursday or Monday at the very latest.
Okay. Mike, would you foresee any issues from legal? Based on this bylaw at this point?
Well, they almost always make some minor adjustments. But where correct me if I'm wrong, Howard, they started with a K&P document.
Right.
So I would suspect there'd be,
Yeah.
only very minor changes unless you guys went way off the reservation.
No, we started with the KMP model bylaw
Yeah.
and then reviewed other municipalities and what they had done and added to that. And when we looked at other municipalities' bylaws that had been reviewed by Attorney General's office, we saw what the Attorney General was saying you need to take out or to put in.
Okay.
And so that type of consideration's already been made.
Okay.
If the KMP and their legal review state that this is gonna be in conflict with the Attorney General's office, then that would be something that would come out.
Okay.
We would just pass over a town meeting.
Well, if it could be deleted and not change the substance of the article, we would just delete it.
And if I may, if we don't have a town meeting and this gets put off till spring, which I feel that something of this type is a better fit at the annual town meeting for one thing. But I don't feel that the town would be open, and I think you would somewhat agree with that, Howard, that building inspector wouldn't let someone come in and put a facility of this type up in a residential neighborhood because we don't have a bylaw.
If a registered medical marijuana dispensary made application to the building inspector for a building permit, he would have to make a determination according to our current use schedule of what it is. If it was to be a medical office, medical offices are not allowed in a residential use. So that the bylaw as presented is to help in the process
Right.
with the planning board. And so
Sorry.
that's how it would happen without the
My
bylaw.
question, the town isn't open to a facility of this type going anywhere
Correct,
under the current bylaws that we have.
correct.
Yeah.
And we're under no pressure from competing businesses saying, look, we're ready to go, get the bylaw so that we can get in here. Because you're gonna make us miss these deadlines at the state level. Am I
Correct.
correct in saying that?
Correct. The bylaw and the process of review and recommendation to the selectmen has not considered at all people seeking registration with the state as an RMD.
Howard, I think I asked you this, what, in your opinion, when will the state be ready to even issue licenses?
I think they've gone through the first round, and basically everybody that was in the first round has moved on to the second. And my understanding that the second happens in the beginning of next year, but I'm not fully aware of what the exact deadlines are.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, let's talk big picture now. So hypothetically, the medical marijuana bill is not on the warrant right now. We've been advised that we can wait on the ambulance piece till,
We don't need the ambulance piece at all.
at all, and not even until the annual town meeting? That's a dead
That's-
issue? It's done,
It's
fixed?
done.
Okay.
We
So the
took
only-
care of it.
But potentially, the only thing on the warrant is the reserve fund transfers to take care of those,
Which can wait as well.
which could also wait.
That's-
However,
Correct.
if in fact we got a opinion from legal counsel that said, this is all set, you're ready to go, could we, coming out of this meeting, in a procedural issue, could we come out of this meeting saying there is no, right at this point, the special town meeting has been called off, period?
You can reschedule
We
it.
can reschedule for sometime in November to deal just with the medical marijuana law. They don't have, the planning board doesn't have to have a new public hearing. We can address the concerns of the legal counsel. And we could have a meeting just to address this in November if we really had to, so that 6-month window doesn't expire.
Correct.
Because I don't want to negate, like, to Gary's point, I don't want to negate all the hard work that the planning board's done on this. I don't want to just make that go up in smoke and then they have to start, not all over again fully, but maybe at 50% level because they already have a lot of the,
All the work's been done,
Work's been
but they
done.
need to vet through the
Right,
public
again,
hearing
and
process and
going through the whole
notification.
process again. So, Looks like to me, again, I'll speak for myself, that I'm comfortable with saying no special town meeting, and let's keep an eye on what legal counsel has to say, and then reschedule. If we want to go ahead and call another meeting, we can reschedule the town meeting to sometime in November.
Yes, you could.
And I think everybody would be, not totally happy with that, but happy enough to know that we're still open to the suggestion that, let's see what legal counsel has to say about the bylaw.
Right.
And then we can just go and move out a couple of weeks.
Yeah, the only, I mean, you have to open and close a warrant, but
Yeah, easy enough.
at your discretion.
Right.
And we just need to post a warrant 2 weeks ahead of time.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, again, I'm just trying to wrap,
Yeah.
got
So,
another event going on, but.
any further discussion? Gary?
What do we do now?
I think what we do now is, someone makes the if I might, Mr. Chairman.
What's the motion?
Cheryl, entertain a motion.
I make a motion to postpone the annual town, not annual, excuse me, special
take-
town meeting,
Yeah, or cancel it.
Yeah.
Cancel it.
cancel the October 28th special town meeting. I just made the motion to cancel it.
I will second that.
Okay.
Any discussion?
Yeah, discussion being, to me, it appears we do not have support to put the medical marijuana bylaw on the warrant. And we've been notified that the ambulance amendment warrant article does not have to be done, so that would be coming out. That would leave us with, $40,000 in reserve fund transfers, which can wait, till the next meeting if we had to. So what's the sense of doing it now, with the consideration that we are still open to the idea that we could schedule a special town meeting sometime in November to address just the medical marijuana bill bylaw, which I like because it's focused on one issue, and we could throw in the operating budget stuff if we had to. That's if we ran into
Or
an
the
emergency.
transfers if
But
we needed
that to
to,
me
but-
is a minor issue.
Yeah, they're very small adjustments.
In the meantime, we've just saved the town probably a couple of $1,000s in costs if we don't have it. But we are seriously open to the fact that we could have address this marijuana bill, bylaw, in sometime in November, waiting for legal counsel. And that's the reason for my motion, Mr. Chairman.
That's if the board so chooses, correct?
Mhm.
My question is where we've sort of opened and closed the warrant. Is there anything we have to do on the legal side for the warrant, or do we just say what David just said, and I seconded, that we're canceling the meeting?
That should take care of it.
Quick question, Howard. So, presuming that we don't do a town meeting at all, let's say we're talking about putting it off to November. If we don't do a town meeting and we address this in annual town meeting, the process that the planning board needs to do is another 2 public sessions?
They would need to
Comment sessions.
re-advertise for a new public hearing
Okay,
process.
okay,
And it could be 1 or 2, or
Okay.
as many as needed for the public to feel that they've been heard and the planning board has fully vetted everything.
okay.
But
So-
as Chairman Surface stated, the bylaw is already half-cooked,
Yeah.
if you will, and ready for that.
Okay.
So it wouldn't be starting completely over.
So the sentiment here is to really wait for legal counsel's feedback before we rush anything. That's basically the bottom line here, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
At least for me. I won't
Okay.
speak for the whole board, but that's the reason
Second.
for my motion.
You have a second from Gary? Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes.
Mr. Chair, the board like to consider the temporary easement that was just brought before us after the warrant was posted.
Sorry, man.
Yeah, it was a you want me to read it, Mr. Chairman?
Oh,
It's a temporary
yeah,
license
thank
for drainage channel improvements. This is, I guess, a project that Peter Durkee's
Okay.
gonna be working on and he needs a temporary easement for 99 Jackman Street for the homeowner, the Bucci family.
So our town crew can go on private property and do drainage work.
And we need to take a vote on that?
You need a vote, yes, and signatures.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to grant, to approve the temporary license for drainage channel improvements on 99 Jackman Street. Property owners are Daniel R. Bucci and Jennifer A. Bucci, as presented.
So move second.
I'll second it.
All right. Any discussion?
Yeah, do we have a timeline on this? I mean, is this something he's pushing because of the weather? and
Yes,
that?
he'd like to get
I
it
mean,
done
As soon as
before the
possible.
winter, and it's a week's worth of work at maximum.
When's our next meeting? I mean, we just received this, I haven't really had a chance to read it, but.
Next Monday?
Next Monday.
Yeah, regular meetings next Monday.
It's
It's
been
pretty straightforward.
reviewed and drawn up by
Legal.
legal counsel.
By our legal.
Yes,
then
And- and the-
homeowners signed it.
and the homeowners have agreed to it.
Next Monday as well, so.
Okay.
All right, any further discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no, and that passes. Any other discussion this evening, gentlemen?
Just, we're having another meeting coming
We
up.
have another meeting coming up
Yeah,
at 7, so
and,
we're gonna scoot out of here. So, I entertain a
Motion to
motion to adjourn.
Second.
So moved, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, thank you and good night.